This is our second session on Colossians 1:15 to 18. Who, namely Christ, is the image of the invisible God. That's the way we know and see what we cannot see, because he has an image, his Son, his firstborn, Jesus Christ, the God-man. To know Christ is to know God. The image of the invisible God, the firstborn of, namely over, all creation. And lest that be passed over too quickly, everything right there underlines it. For by him all things were created. And then he gets specific to make sure we don't miss how extensive he means this. Absolutely nothing left out of this all things, except the one in whose image he is from all eternity. You can't create the person whose image you have been from all eternity. So all things besides God. For by him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible, invisible, spirits, and things you cannot see. Whether thrones. Now he's going to list powers here. And clearly rulers and authorities are the evil ones. They're the authorities that we saw back in verse 13, from which we have been set free. And he wants to make sure that we know all thrones, all dominions or lordships, all rulers, all authorities. In other words, all the most evil and powerful forces in the world are under his sway as their maker. If they look big to us, for these Colossians, if the Roman Empire and the emperor looks big, he says, remember, I made him like a tree, like a dog, a pig. I made him. All things were created through Christ and for Christ. That's significant. So the through him, which interprets by him here, because God the Father is also involved. Let's look at John 1:1-3 to see that powerful duality in creation. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So he was with God, a second person in the Godhead, and he was God, nothing less than very God of very God. He was in the beginning with God, and all things were made through him. So through implies that he was God and he was with God. The with God means there is a Father whom he is with, and the Father is creating through him. But it is not through by using a creature to make anything, because he was God. So God the Father is making God the Son, who is very God of very God, the agent of creation, so that together they have created all things. And without him was not anything made that was made. Same thing over here in Hebrews 1. In these last days, God has spoken to us by a Son, whom he has appointed heir of all things, and through whom he created the world. Through whom God created the world. Or Romans 11:36, for from him, through him, and to him are all things, to him be glory. Now that's God. Only here in Colossians, it is for him and through him, the Son. And so two, and I think we could say all three of these, from him and to him, are said to be explicitly Christ. Christ does all things are from him, all things are to Christ, for Christ, and through him also. In other words, God and Christ act in concert as Father, God, Son, God. Let's linger here. All things were created through him. So if you have to sum up what this is saying, I think you conclude this as well. So what's the point? One point of all of this. He is over all creation. By him all things were created. He lists all the things. Then he repeats it. Through him everything was created. And he ends with, for him everything was created. I think you could sum it up like this. Christ created all things for Christ. And the question is, what does that mean? What does this mean right here? Christ created all things for Christ. Here's part of the answer right here. The firstborn from the dead, that in everything he might be preeminent. So you could say, he created all things because then all things in redemption, all things in the ordinary functionings of providence, all of them are serving to show or reveal or display or communicate Christ's. And then you can use different words. You could use this one, preeminence. But that implies preeminence in lots of things, right? Greatness, glory, value, beauty. Communicate, show, reveal, display, communicate to whom? If he created all the universe and all the players of redemption for his preeminence, to show, reveal, display, communicate Christ's preeminence, his greatness, his glory, who is he doing it for? Who's he communicating to? And the primary example would be us, or the primary answer would be us. Yes, the demons also, according to what we'll see over in chapter 3, verse 10, he will show the old powers of heaven, how great he is. But for us, he has done it. For us to what? What are we supposed to do when we see this preeminence of Christ and this greatness of Christ and this glory of Christ? What is the point of showing us? And the answer surely is to know it rightly, that we might know Christ, and since he's the image of God, know God, and to love him, to love him, to love his preeminence, to love his supremacy, his greatness, his glory. And what does love mean when it comes to those for whom you cannot meet any needs? It means to enjoy. It means to treasure. So you can see where I have ended up, and I'll commend this to you for your consideration, and then we'll see if it bears out. When he says that he has done all things, created all things for himself here, and he foregrounds the idea of his preeminence to display, show, reveal, communicate his preeminence, his greatness, his glory for us to know and love and enjoy. Has he changed the meaning of it's all for him to it's all for us? That's a very important question. And the answer is no, he hasn't, because what happens when millions of people see the beauty of Christ, the supremacy of Christ, the greatness of Christ, the preeminence of Christ in every thing and his supreme value. What happens when those people enjoy him, love him, treasure him above all things? And the answer is, he is glorified. Christ is most magnified or glorified in us when we are most enjoying, treasuring, loving, satisfied in him. So yes, it is for us, and yes, it is for him, but it is ultimately for him that he made all things.